It is your door to more opportunity. It is your door to other people, and people are what make creative work work. Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. My name is Jacob Williams and I am a full-time professional music producer and composer. Today I kind of wanted to piggyback off of what we were talking about last week, where essentially I was sort of breaking down the entire music making process and what comes first: the songwriting, the mixing, the production, the instruments. Where do you even start? And today we're going to talk about my job and what goes into it and how I got started, and maybe it'll help some of you that are maybe trying to get into the music space or maybe have considered doing creative work of any kind, even graphic design, web design. There's all kinds of fields out there. Now we live in a time where some people view creative work as it's jeopardized, or it's just not how it was about 10 years ago, pre-pandemic. I agree and disagree with a lot of those hot takes, and I personally feel like no matter what, someone somewhere is always going to want a human being to do the work for them or with them. So with that being said, I wanted to kind of go into maybe a little bit of my journey, and it might help inspire some of you guys who aren't full-time yet, or maybe you're thinking about doing creative work, and let's just see where it goes. So when I first wanted to get into doing music, production was just not even a thought in my mind. I always kind of knew what a music producer was. I remember, I think my mom had this CD in her car, and it was the Timbaland, I think it was the Shock Value compilation. It had all the hits on it, all the stuff that he produced in the early mid 2000s, and it was just banger after banger, even the collab with Fall Out Boy on there and a lot of stuff with JT. But that was my first introduction to what a music producer was, and it was not appealing enough for me to jump at it, because my introduction to music was kind of around that time, maybe a little bit after that. I started playing the game Guitar Hero, and I was I want to do that. I just got this rush. I was playing guitar, or fake guitar with plastic buttons, and it was just this is incredible. Again, you're a kid. You're not even thinking money. You're not even thinking providing value to people. You're not even thinking of adding to the big song, or adding to art in general, right? You're just thinking that was a rush. That was cool. And I was hooked. I was addicted. So I played the absolute crap out of that game for as long as I can remember. But after that, I got my first guitar, and I was I want to start a band. To me at the time, you're either a singer or you start a band. That was the only thing I thought was possible was solo artist or band. And I was well, I can't do everything myself, so I'll play guitar and sing and find bandmates. Long story short, that didn't work out well. I tried to start a couple projects with friends around elementary, middle school, and kids don't commit. That's I'm not sure what it's like nowadays, but back in the 2000s, kids didn't commit. We were all too busy playing video games and watching anime to really care about trying to do something outside of our little bubbles. I, for some reason, just held on to it though. I was just I want to do something music related, and I wasn't even thinking about providing. I just wanted to do it. It was this innate drive, and as I got older, I kind of learned more about what that was and what that is, and we'll get into that more in a later video. But essentially that led me to discovering I wanted to produce. Around late middle school, early high school, I heard a record that
blew my mind and shattered all reality,
and I dove straight into late 2000s, early 2010s EDM, and I wanted to know how to create it. Come to find out, it's all made on a singular laptop. The fact that somebody somewhere can make full songs, regardless of genre, on a computer was enough for me to go, I don't need a band. I don't. And I would still start a couple projects here and there, or try to diversify myself as I produced the producer beatmaker route in high school, but I literally was that's it for me. That's it. I want to be a producer, if that's what that is. Fast forward through lots of things, lots of stuff I've experienced, lots of things that kind of built up my producer journey, we'll call it. Lots of humbling moments, lots of not so humbling moments, lots of turmoil, lots of really surprising discoveries and victories. I'm now sitting here almost 30 as a full-time music producer and composer, and it's taken me very long to get here, and we'll break down kind of what a window into my life looks like. So first things first, there's two ways to go about doing this kind of work. You either are someone that's renowned, someone who has credit, someone who has a manager or representative or agent that helps you secure gigs, helps you kind of manage your career and helps you sort of get things done. Or you have people like me who do it all themselves and have to try to stay organized, stay above the waves of business, or try to get business as much as you can. You kind of have to think of yourself as having multiple pillars of your business. You got to be the creative person doing the creative thing you signed up for. You have to do it well. And then you also have to be able to have people skills and present yourself, communicate with people. And then number 4, which is what I suck at and a lot of people I've met in this industry suck at, is the marketing aspect of things. Client outreach, getting more people to know your name, word of mouth, that kind of thing. And I've been blessed to have worked with people who have recommended me to their friends, people who I've met through various marketplaces and places on the internet that have given me their business, and I'm so thankful for that. If it wasn't for that, I would not be here talking about this information. But essentially, you gotta view doing creative work for a living like you're not just doing the creative work, you're doing creative work and you're also doing a bunch of other stuff you probably don't want to do, but it goes hand in hand with trying to survive in today's sort of internet economy that we find ourselves in. Those are kind of the rough, like a rough sort of just unscripted, what I would call pillars or elements of running my business or producing for people or keeping my clients organized. Am I scoring for a movie today? Am I doing a game soundtrack? Am I producing an album this month? Or am I mixing vocals for someone? There's so many different kinds of projects, hundreds of people, thousands of projects, and it's it can get overwhelming sometimes. There's a lot of moments where things will slow down and you start to panic because you don't really have a lot of money coming in. You don't have a lot of projects, but then when there are projects, you're like, oh my God. And then there's a lot of projects. So again, we can talk more about that later in more detail. There's so many ways I could break down everything that I do in my day. And I'd much rather prefer to kind of maybe take one of those at a time and break them down into individual videos for you guys. But essentially, if you're out there and you're doing the grind like I am, or you're thinking about doing it, just know that you're not alone. It's okay. And on this channel, we're actually going to talk about a lot of different elements and aspects of doing this type of work or creative work in general. My time is split up though amidst all that stuff, and I'm never without anything to do, even during slow burns or moments where work seems to be dwindling or falling short of what it was before. Let's rewind a little bit, and I touched on this a little bit earlier in this video, how I actually started producing. The TLDR is YouTube tutorials. If it was not for YouTube, I would not have learned the skills that I have as easily. I did end up going to college way later, but let's keep things in chronological order. So YouTube tutorials, I sucked. Literally every music project I ever did. If any of you know or remember my old music project from the SoundCloud days or from old YouTube, do not share that with anyone because it is out there in the ether of the internet. People have seen all my old music. It sucks. I don't know what I was doing. I was trying to do like 50 different types of music at once, but the bottom line is I did learn a lot from it. I was able to take a lot of those lessons from all different aspects of my life, creatively and personally, and apply them to my next step, which was after high school. After I tried, diversifying myself, I produced beats for rappers and singers that I would meet online, or friends that I went to school with. I would form bands with some people and we tried doing that. And I would produce the records and, that kind of thing in the bedroom, whole bedroom producer workflow when I was in high school, mid to late high school. And again, we'll go more into some of the stuff that I did in more detail in later videos. But essentially, this led me to go to college for music production. I enrolled in Full Sail and I actually really loved their process there. I was able to learn a lot really quickly. But what I will say is, and this is one of my hot takes that I want to really get across in this video, if you want to do creative work for a living, you do not have to go to college. And I'm going to get to that point and why I still stand by it to this day in my next point. But I do want to say, if you do want to go to college for just a general primer, or you want to go to a trade school just so you could get that certification, there's nothing wrong with that. It's completely valid. I do not even regret going to college to this day, even though I'm paying student loans. What I will say is you don't need it. You can still do whatever you want to do without going to school. I'm not against going to school, but I'm also not 100% for it. And this is why. Starting around closer to the pandemic, I started thinking to myself, and this was shortly after I graduated, I was like, I don't think a company is going to hire me if I just go to them and say, hey, I know how to produce a record, or hey, I know how to build beats, so I want to make some for commercial licensing. I don't think I can just get in to the business that way. And I was right. People want experience. They want to see that you know the ropes. And looking back at 2018, 2019, I did not know the ropes as much as I thought I did. Although I did have sort of ragtag experience, as I like to call it, I did not have the sort of wherewithal that I have today. And that came from freelancing. If it was not for me deciding during the pandemic to say, screw it, I'm just going to throw myself out there. I'm going to go on Fiverr and Upwork and all these places and start shipping out my services to people that need it. I'm going to start dirt cheap and just build from there. If I did not start doing that, I would not be here today doing this full time. And that's just such a powerful thing to say out loud, because if I just didn't have that thought to do it, it completely changed my life. When I started, my wife was a Twitch streamer at the time. She needed some sort of like jingle for her Twitch channel, so I was like, well, I got it, I could just make it. And so I made her like this little beat with like game samples in it and stuff. That became like the theme of her channel. What ended up happening was I started to see some of her friends on there go, hey, like I could use some intro music for my channel. And I was like, I'm going to make this the introduction to my business. I'm going to start by just making jingles for like Twitch streamers and YouTubers and just see where it goes. Just see what the market demand is for it. And it actually went quite well. That was my start in terms of getting out there into the freelance space and actually making tracks for people. That eventually transitioned into doing soundtracks. I did some soundtracks for some independent video games to kind of start off with, just some like DIY indie ideas. And again, guys, I charged like really cheap, like way cheaper than I charge now for services. So things were a lot different back then. But what I learned is you got to start small. So I started charging like $30 a beat. Okay, right now I charge about 120 to 160 depending on what you need with it. But again, I charged really cheap. No contracts, no royalties, no nothing. Production clients started coming in. Once that's kind of took off, that sort of became my main gig everywhere. And I was able to branch out with just people spreading my name around, talking about it. Eventually I got ghost production gigs, which are the more higher paying gigs. They're jobs I can't really talk about. I'm allowed to say that much. So eventually I was able to diversify my workflow from there, and things have been on a steady sort of like this. And if I look at the graphs for the last couple of years, probably 4 or 5 years, I would say that's kind of the main thing, is just word of mouth, build your reputation, be good at what you do. Here is why you don't need college necessarily. You can still go if you want, but this is why you don't necessarily need it. Is because of that freelance experience, I learned arguably, I would say 200% more from just sitting and doing the work for years than I did from any class, from any YouTube video, from anything. Because let's say there's a genre you've never heard of and a client needs it done. A client's like, hey, I really like your music overall. I know you haven't heard this stuff before, but would you be down to try producing it or experimenting to try to compose in this style? I've learned to say yes more than no, because when you're doing things to try to make a living, or when you're doing things to try to please a client, or you're trying to get better, and you sort of have this incentive of working with someone and doing a joint collaboration on something, it really pushes you to learn and to understand. And I would say that feeling, when applied to all the thousands of jobs that I've worked on, is so valuable, and it's more valuable than college, I would say. So that's my personal take. Again, other people might disagree. They might say, no, you should go to college. But I would say that has been my most valuable thing, and that I want to pass on to other people that also want to produce, or also want to mix, or also want to be a musician, is just keep doing the thing. Try to find a way to do it either for a living or for other people in some way, or try to find some sort of high incentive gain reason to do it. Even if you're just growing yourself on social media or TikTok or something like that, find a way to consistently do something so much that it becomes muscle memory, becomes ingrained up here, because that's going to be your main lessons that you learn. Because I still learn stuff every day. There's not a single job that passes through my workflow back here that I don't learn something from. And I think that is so incredible. And that's part of the reason why I still love doing this stuff, because it just never gets old. There might be some mundane projects here and there where I'm like, okay, how many lo-fi beats do I have to make in my life? But I still find a way to make it interesting. I'll try using new plugins. I'll try using new chords that I haven't tried before, new melody ideas, or different ways of processing things. There's just constantly always something to get creative with. And I think you got to stay tapping into that so that you don't get burnt out. I would say the pros of doing what I do, doing creative work in music, is It's creative work. Who doesn't love creative work? I get to do what I love. Again, music has always been a passion since I first hit that plastic note on Guitar Hero when I was like 8. I get to help people pretty much every day, and it's awesome. And again, learning every day on the job. Who doesn't want to do that? I'd say the cons are sometimes revisions can get a little so they could just get a little exhausting, or sometimes you'll get a client that just doesn't communicate well. You guys just aren't a very good creative fit, and that just is a reality of anything creative, whether you're a graphic designer, music maker, or anything of the sort. You will always meet people in your niche or in your industry that you just don't get along with. Thankfully for me, that's only been few and far between. I've only had I can count them on one hand, just a couple bad experiences that almost tainted my experience and made me not want to pursue this stuff anymore. But other than that, I would say the pros definitely outweigh the cons. The only con that I held on to for the end is that it is unstable. You don't know when you're going to reach a pit of not having stable work or a stable flow of work. So you just kind of have to manage your money accordingly. You kind of got to just look out for the next contract or the next gig. And it's not as reliable as getting a salary-based job. So if the job security is very important to you, that is the hardest part about doing this kind of stuff. And I cannot emphasize that enough. It is the one downside of doing this kind of stuff is it's not easy when it comes to the finances, but the fulfillment, the reward is so worth it. So worth it. If I had to start from scratch, from square one, I had nothing. I had no experience, nothing to my name, nothing that I could draw upon. If like tomorrow I wake up and I have to start completely over, I think I would tell myself, just get a DAW, get a DAW of any kind, which we'll talk about in the next video. Actually, we'll talk about DAW choice and what's important, what's not important about it. Get a DAW, get something to make your tracks on or record your musical ideas on. Start on anything. Just literally work on any project that comes to your mind, whatever inspires you, whatever is weird, maybe experimental, maybe that's your niche. Maybe you are a sound designer and you just don't know it yet. Maybe you're a pop star and you just don't know that yet either. But I would just start on anything, whatever you want your niche to be, or if you want to be a jack of all trades like myself, just start on anything. Go ahead and just DM people, ask them if they want to work for you. Start for free, start for cheap. Just start on something. Start the ball rolling. There is no time like the present. If this makes you guys feel any better, start on social media. Unfortunately, we live in a world where social media just dominates everything. I am actually not a big fan of social media. We can talk about that in a future video. I have my own love-hate relationship with it and my own personal relationship with it that I don't like. But I have told myself again and again and again to get more consistent with social media. It is your door to more opportunity. It is your door to other people, and people are what make creative work work. Take with that what you will. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.